Hello, everybody. It is Romania Black. We are on episode 25 of Ace of the Diamond, and it's getting into the qualifiers. We just won a first couple of games, and now this is the game against Akikawa that we have to win in order for Tanba to come back and be able to play in the quarterfinals. So, no pressure, right? But it looks like the last couple of games in this series went by relatively quickly. I loved Chiba, the coach. I loved the coach for the second team. Like, they were really great, lots of fun, but they went by relatively quickly in those 3 episodes. But I have a feeling that with this team, Akikawa, that it's going to be a little bit longer of a battle throughout these episodes because we've been introduced to the Clockwork Man himself, this Taiwanese baseball player who clearly has a lot of pride and a lot on the line to do well in this game. So that's going to make him a very tough opponent. And I'm very curious. He's a pitcher, and he seems to have exactly what Sawamura and Furuya do not have, which is pacing and control. And so that is going to be interesting to see how them and Kawakami deal with his strategy. And then on top of everything else, as if that wasn't enough to deal with, Furuya, as Miyuki's discovered finally, Furuya grew up in a kind of colder climate, isn't used to the summers of Tokyo, and is overheating. And that's why his stamina has been zapped, or part of it. And so Miyuki, luckily realizing this before the big game, hopefully will give them time to kind of prep for this, because the title of episode 25 is the anti-Furuya strategy, which makes me think that the team is going to have to come up with a solution of, okay, if we can't rely on Furuya for the entire game or for only a couple innings, what are we going to do? Because the other team is going to take advantage of this. So that has me really excited to see what they end up doing and if Sawamura has to step up to the plate and kind of up his game. So I have a new computer. Finally, I've had my old laptop for years, and I'm still going to use it to do some editing, but it is starting to kick the bucket. You may have noticed with some other reactions, it was starting to glitch or act up, and I was like, eh. So I finally bit the bullet and got a new computer. So it's a little bit higher up, so I'm going to be looking up to the episodes. So if you notice why I'm looking up instead of down, that's why. But hopefully everything works out really good. But I am excited. I've been told through Patreon, this is episodes 25, 26, and 27 this week. I have been told through Patreon that next week, episode 28 is just a recap episode. It's kind of like the mid-season recap, which is funny because it's only episode 29 and we've got like 75 episodes this season, but it's just a recap episode. So I'm probably not going to react to episode 28. Next week, I'll probably start in episode 29. And if something is present in episode 28, I'm going to watch it, but I won't react to it. But if I see anything worth mentioning, I'll note that before we start episode 29. So just to give you a heads up, that's why when you see next episode, the title may say episodes 28 through 31, but it won't be really be episode 28. But anyway, let's dive in, shall we? I've got my notes ready. We're ready to start episode 25 and see what happens as we face Akikawa. So yeah, let's do this, shall we? We are going to start this episode here. Let me get everything synced up. In 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, this game is getting really good. And we are only like 4 innings into this game through 3 episodes. So yeah, this is a long haul game, and I kind of get why the next episode 28, is a recap episode. I get why they're doing that now, because that just means that we're just going to kind of highlight everything Sawamura's done leading up to this point and then getting him in this game. So, there's a lot to talk about. So just going through this, I think one of the most important things to come out of this episode is the idea that it's funny because everybody looks at Sato and is like, oh, you don't have a lot of pitching options. They actually have quite a lot of pitching options. If they make it through this game, they're going to let Tanba pitch again, which he's their ace. They've got Kawakami, who is a well-established relief pitcher who can come in later in the game and kind of be the backup. Then you have Furuya, who can start out with all this power. And then now you have Sawamura, who potentially has a lot of options that he can use. So you've got 4 pitchers there that seems like a lot more than some of the other teams have let on that they have. So I think that they do have options It's just everybody's so used to Sato just having Tanba and Kawakami that the idea of these other 2 first-year pitchers coming in is something new. And so I like that the coach, being a former pitcher, I think is a huge part of this because he is really invested in Furuya and Sawamura, and I like that a lot. So episode 25, the anti-Furuya strategy, it seems like it's a two-way street. It's both Sato trying to find a way to go around Furuya getting overheated, and it's also Akikawa. I've been calling him Aikawa. It's Akikawa trying to also stop Furuya, and their plan was pretty well orchestrated. They're like, we're just gonna tire him out, and that's the problem with Furuya. Furuya, as you all have commented in the previous episodes, Furuya is all about power. Like, Furuya has a lot of ferocity and power to his pitch, but it can become predictable, and we've had that the last 20 or so episodes. Miyuki's been hinting at that the whole time. They're like, once they figure you out, they're going to exploit it, and that's exactly what they've done. And so them just not... Furuya doesn't have that control yet to pace himself and to get the pitches to where they're not just high, where they're consistently strikes. He's been throwing too many balls, and Miyuki's been on to him about that, and it's just that he doesn't have the experience. So he's just not gotten to that point yet, and so they're taking advantage of it. And so it's only a matter of time. But I will note in episode 25, one thing I really liked about it was Sawamura genuinely cheering Furuya on. And that's something that I've loved about him and Furuya's rivalry. Because normally in a sports anime, and I think of Haikyuu, I think of Slam Dunk as the main ones that I've watched. Run with the Wind, there's not really a rivalry with Run with the Wind because they're all running by themselves but in a group. So there's not really a rivalry there in Run with the Wind. And in Free everybody's friends. So there's no rivalry in Free. Even the rivals, it's like, y'all hold hands, it's fine. But like in Slam Dunk and Haikyuu, the rivalry, there is a little bit of animosity there, especially in Slam Dunk. Like with Rukawa and Sakuragi, there is an animosity there. They just don't like each other, and them working together is kind of because for the sake of the team. And then Haikyuu, yeah, Kageyama and Hinata are friends, but they don't ever want to admit it. They're like, nah, I guess finally, like, it took 4 seasons for Kageyama to be like, nice receive, like that, you know. But here, what I like about this show is that Sawamura and Furuya, yeah, they're rivals, they're polar opposites, but they support each other, you know, to an extent. I mean, at the end there when Furuya got off the mound, he's like, I hate you. And Sawamura's like, what? No, you don't. It's like, you know, they want to be friends. They are friendly towards each other to an extent. And then they kind of jab at each other as well. And so I like that there is that sense of rivalry, but also camaraderie too. I really appreciate that with this show. Although Miyuki, I have to say, Miyuki seems very leaning towards Furuya of the two of them. Like Chris and Sawamura are a battery, y'all. I love their dynamic. Chris Senpai is all supportive of Sawamura. He has joined Rei in the Sawamura fan club, and I love it. But Miyuki seems to still lean towards Furuya. I don't know if that's because maybe Miyuki relates to Furuya a little bit more, but he seems more hesitant to work with Sawamura than he does with Furuya, and I'm not quite sure why that is. And I'm thinking maybe in future episodes we'll find more of that out. Maybe he just doesn't trust Sawamura as much. Or maybe it could be Miyuki has higher expectations for Sawamura, and Sawamura is just not at that point yet. I'm not sure. But I just noticed Miyuki gives him a lot harder of time than he does Furuya. And that could be that he just relates. Or it could be, you know, Miyuki has said to Kuramochi in the past, he's like, I'll do whatever I have to get the pitchers to do whatever I want. And so maybe he's playing Furuya and Sawamura like he's playing Tanba. I don't know. Miyuki's a troll, so there's just really no telling. But as much of a troll as he is, Shun still respects him. And I love how that episode ends with Shun giving props to Miyuki. He's like, these pitchers are not as strong as they could be, but because of you, that's why they're doing so well, because you have faith in them and you're orchestrating this. Kind of like what Chris did in the practice game against Kiryu. So I like that the episode ended on that. And then one thing I love about Furuya has my respect in this set of episodes, because here's the thing, Furuya, when you have prodigy like characters, like Furuya's been kind of built up on the outside to be kind of like a prodigy-like character, like your Kageyamas, like your Rukawas. But here's the thing. Furuya is not selfish. He's not an egotist. He is not doing this for himself. He's doing this for the team. And I think that's really important to note about Furuya's character, because on the outside you could say, oh, well, he's just a prodigy pitcher that has all this power and whatever. But, Furuya is not like Sawamura. Sawamura at the start of the series was like, I'm going to be the ace, and I care more about the team more about this position than anybody else. Like, he was very egocentric at the start. Furuya's never really been that way. Furuya just wants to pitch, and he just wants to do the best for the team. And I think that's really endearing for his character, because his character kind of comes off, he's so quiet and introverted that he comes off as cold and standoffish, but he's not. He really cares about his teammates, and he wants to do the best for the team and for everyone. And I think that makes him stand out, that he's not self-centered, and he's not just doing this for his selfish agenda. He's doing it so that they win. And it makes sense because Furuya's never really had a team. Nobody wanted to play with him, and nobody wanted to practice with him. And so he had to kind of do it. And so the fact that now he has a support system and people are like praising him and giving him compliments, it's something he's not used to and that he's craved. And I love that about his character. Like, this whole series of episodes, and there at the end, it was so sad because he didn't want to leave. It's not that he wanted to stay on the mound to be the ace or for selfish reasons. He's just like, I've done all this for my team, and if I leave, I feel like I'm letting them down. And it's like, it's heartbreaking, because you're like, no, you're not letting them down. It's part of the strategy. They can't let, Ichidai is watching them, so they can't let them know that you have a weakness. They're like, we need to take you out now while you're not totally messing up, so that they'll forget about you and forget about that moment and focus more on Sawamura and Kawakami. So it's a smart strategy, but it's like Furuya's like, I just want to keep pitching. And it's like, it's so hard. Shun versus Miyuki in episode 26. Holy cow. What a jab, like Miyuki saying, nice Japanese, like instantly knowing he's Taiwanese. That was like, I was like, ooh, that's a jab. That's a burn there, Miyuki. You're just cutting him to the core. And then after that, Shun starts speaking in Taiwanese out loud, being like, oh, well, fine. Thanks for the nice compliment, but I'm not talking in Japanese to you anymore. And it's like, it'd be funny if Miyuki knew Taiwanese. That'd be really funny, but he doesn't. I like, again, that Shun gives Furuya some respect, saying you're not as fragile as I thought you were. And no, Furuya, for all of his stamina and getting exhausted, I mean, he held out 4 innings in an extreme heat that he's not used to and still didn't want to give up. Like, he didn't get weak at all. He pitched straight to the end as strong as he could. It's just that was the appropriate time to take him out. I mean, 24 pitches in the first game, and they said by the end of the 3rd inning, he'd pitched over 60 pitches. And they're like, yeah, he's done a lot. We need to get him out before he gets exhausted. And then, oh my God, Tanba giving Furuya respect. Like, Tanba coming up and being like, hey, it's okay. You're doing all right. And then being like, just blame it all on Miyuki. And it's like, and Miyuki's like, no, stop it. Don't corrupt him. Don't get him on your side, Tanba. Like, that was really cool. Like, Tanba showing respect. And that's something pretty big, because Tanba has been ragging on Miyuki because he's like, you're not giving respect to your upperclassmen. For Tanba to go out of his way and give respect to Furuya, like, all the 3rd years saw that. So that was a really significant moment, that it helped the 3rd years put their respect behind Furuya as well, once they saw that their ace was doing it too. And so I really liked that. But kind of in the same vein, what I like about Akikawa is that they're becoming a team that I'm kind of also rooting for. And Haikyuu does a fantastic job of getting you to root for the opposition. Like, Haikyuu is a series of sports anime where you root for every team, even the ones that are against Karasuno. And in this, I'm starting to get that with Akikawa, because Shun, as like calculating and cold as Shun is, he's also like the backbone of their team, and the team gets inspired and hyped up because of Shun, and they all get fired up. And I like that there's this establishment that Akikawa is not a prestigious school. They're not. They just have a really good player. Shun is like a really good player and has led them to this point and kind of motivated them and brought out in the episode I was comparing him to Ushijima, which is a bad comparison. I really shouldn't compare anybody in this series to anyone from another sports anime. But I wanted to correct myself. He's not like Ushijima. Shun is not like Ushijima. He has the strength. He's more like Oikawa if we're going to compare him to anybody, because he's all about the strategy and about bringing out the most in his teammates. And that's something that Oikawa does in Haikyuu. And Oikawa is one of my favorite characters because of it. I don't know if Shun is my favorite character in the series, but he has that same mentality, that same kind of ability as well. And so if we're gonna make a comparison, which I probably will stop making comparisons to other sports anime, but if we're gonna make a comparison, I would say it's more like Oikawa than Ushijima. So the innings lasting a long time, and Furuya not getting taken out. We dedicated a whole episode to one inning, which is crazy to me. Like, that's a sign that this is gonna be a long game, because we're only 4 innings in, and this is not going to be like a 5-inning game, I don't think, because they're not winning. It's still 0-2. It's still 0-2, and Akikawa's winning. So Furuya being out and Sawamura being in, like, Saito has to make a comeback in the next set of episodes. So I'm really excited about that. And the idea of we're desperate too, of Shun saying that, with Akikawa being like, we're just as desperate. I think it was maybe Noni that said it, but he's like, we're just as desperate as y'all. Like, every team wants to win, and they're going to do whatever they can to win. And that's kind of the rationale behind the coach taking him out in the 4th inning. But, okay, the coach is a badass. Like, I've said this in every reaction, but the coach he may be my favorite coach in sports anime so far, is the coach for Saito. Like, just rocking his button-up shirt, his slacks, coming in his dress shoes, popping on the helmet and being like, let's throw this, Sawamura. That was such a build-up and such tension, and they save it for the end of that episode. I'm glad that they showed that within these 3 episodes, because I was going to be so mad if they didn't show us that pitch, but him pitching exactly under pressure the way he was supposed to. And I wonder if the coach sees a little bit of himself in both Sawamura and Furuya, and that's why he's so attached to them as first-year pitchers, but he also sees the potential. They're only first years. Like, they can only go up from here, right? Like, by the time they're third years, they'll be monsters. And I think that's what he's hoping for. But that moment where Sawamura comes out and Furuya's so frustrated and the whole team gathers around, you can tell the team is frustrated for Furuya, because they're like, dude, you've not done anything wrong. And he hasn't. Not really. He's just, they don't want to reveal their hand this early in the qualifiers to the other teams watching. So they're like, we got to take you out now. It's nothing again. It's nothing personal. And then Furuya's like, and that determination, he's like, I don't want to. I think the whole phrase for episode 27, I'm not running, it applies to both Furuya and Sawamura, that neither of them want to give up what they have. And Miyuki just comes in, and Miyuki's like, fine, I got to be bad cop. I'll be bad cop. He's like, I'm going to tell you like it is. You did this, you did this wrong, now you gotta leave. And it's like, and the team's like, oh God, Miyuki. But Miyuki is that character that he's a troll, he's charming, but if he has to do what has to be done, he's gonna do it because he wants to win. And so he's like, fine, you want me to be the bad guy and call you out? I'll do it. Now get off the mound. And it's like, and it's hard because Miyuki likes Furuya and he wants him to stay, but he's like, this is what the coach has ordered. He's got a reason for it, so you got to go through with it. And it's like, oh my gosh. And then, here's the thing. Shun is smart, and he has figured them out. When the other team is like, oh, why? And you could tell that them using Sawamura too. The coach is thinking, okay, I love that line that the coach says. He's like, we don't want the outfielders to think we only have Kawakami left. We want them to think we still, like, the difference between still and only is huge, because still means that there's hope, there's options, it's not desperate. If they say we only have Kawakami, if he had put in Kawakami after Furuya, it'd been like, okay, we only have Kawakami left, and if that doesn't work, then it's desperate, and it's like, oh no, Sawamura, it's our last straw. But with this move, with putting out Sawamura first, the coach is saying, no, we still have Kawakami, but we need to throw the team off. And what better way to throw them off than to bring out another rookie, a southpaw rookie like Sawamura. And so it makes sense why he does that. But also, it almost seemed like a strategy at first where he was saying, okay, we're not bringing out Tanba. And it was almost kind of like to try to insult the team. But first the team's like, they're just insulting us. They're not even bringing their ace out to face us. They think that little of us. And then Shun is like, no, that's not it. Something's up with the ace. They're not bringing him out for a reason. They were never going to bring him out against us. So Shun is caught on, but So I also have to say that Akikawa's coach is a freaking cinnamon roll. I love him. I love him. Because by the end of it, he gets so emotional and choked up. He's like, Shun, he's like, you're motivating the team and they're all behind you and respect you. And he's just like, he's so bursting with pride. You can tell like he has all this pride and happiness. He's the total opposite of Sato's coach, because Akikawa's coach is so like such a cinnamon bun, and he's just gushing with pride, and he's so happy, and he's just, you can hear all of his emotions. We don't get into Sato's coach's head at all. Like, he just stands there with that cold, calculating expression. And I love it. It's badass. But I'm wondering eventually if we will get into his head and see what he's thinking. Because so far, we get into Chris's head, we get into Ray's head. The one manager that's out there with him, the sponsor, he's like losing his mind every 5 seconds and making all the worst calls. But we never get inside the coach's head. And so I'm curious if eventually we will. And I think that's the point. I'm going to be like emotional when we get in the coach's head. It's going to be like, oh, he's telling us what he thinks. But yeah, this set of episodes, this match has been really good. Each week I say that these episodes are my favorite. And because the show just gets better and better, but I really love the dynamic that we're getting. And I love that Sawamura, with the exception of him throwing to first, because he had to mess up. He's our main character. He's not flawless. He had to mess up. But I love that Sawamura is becoming confident in his pitches to the point where he's starting to get that control. It's starting to come in. He doesn't have the power that Furuya has. He doesn't have the stability that Kawakami has. And he doesn't perhaps have all the experience and technique that Tanba has, but he's getting there. And I love that this is a slow turning point for Sawamura. And I have a feeling, like I said, that's why episode 28 is going to be like all the recap with Sawamura, leading into episode 29 where we get to see him on display. And that's pretty cool. So yeah, my plan is to watch episode 28 on my own, because I've been told it's just a recap. It's not important. And that from there, I'm going to watch, next week we'll have episodes 29, 30, and 31. And I'll probably just recap episode 28 for everybody to let us know how it is. But these episodes were so good. This game has been my favorite matchup so far. Ryosuke and Haruichi. I didn't really write it down in my notes, but I love that we're getting more into Ryosuke and Haruichi, the brothers talking, and people making notice. They're like, man, these brothers don't really talk a lot, but now they're getting kind of in the groove together. And seeing Ryosuke struggle, like that was another thing that was kind of hard with this episode. Like in episode 26 and 27, like Ryosuke, you can tell, is used to being a competent, reliable batter. And against Shun, this is the first time in a while that he's like, oh, here's a challenge. And it's frustrating. And so we don't get to see Haruichi really play yet. So I'm wondering if in the next set of episodes we kind of touch base and have that come full circle with them. I'm not sure. But in any case, this is a really good set of episodes. I absolutely loved it. So we have a new ED, we have a new OP. It's great. We're getting into this next round of qualifiers. It'll be quarterfinals after this if they make it through the game. I want them to win because I want Tanba to come back and play. I'm sure they will win this game. It's just a matter of how. So we shall see. But in any case, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what you thought of the episode, what you thought of this series so far. It's getting really good. It's been good the whole time, but it's really picking up the pace, and I like it. So I'm curious to know your thoughts. But in any case, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back next time with episodes 29, 30, and 31 of Ace of the Diamond. Bye!